Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at OnlyFans, specifically where it stands in 2025.
Right.
We've pulled together some recent industry data, but also, importantly, firsthand accounts from creators themselves, really trying to understand what's actually happening.
Yeah, get beyond the headline.
Exactly. We want to get to the core of its growth, money side for creators, the challenges, the real stories.
And it's definitely massive. You mentioned the scale.
Oh, yeah. Over 305 million users and something like 4.5 million creators globally. It's huge.
It really is. So let's maybe start there.
Yeah, let's jump in, unpack how it works, who's involved.
Okay, so that huge user base, over 300 million, it really shows the reach, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And what's really striking when you look at who's creating versus who's consuming the content is the gender split. You've got about 84% of creators identifying as female, but then on the user side, it's around 78.9% male.
Wow, that's a significant imbalance.
It really is. It shapes the whole ecosystem, that dynamic.
It definitely points to a very specific kind of marketplace. Now, it wasn't always this global giant, right? It started back in 2016.
Yeah, 2016, Tim Stokely founded it.
And the original idea?
Well, fundamentally, it was meant to be a subscription platform, giving creators a way to, directly monetize their content.
Directly to fans.
Exactly. And what you see all sorts of content now, fitness, cooking, whatever its initial big splash, and frankly, a lot of its ongoing success, came from adult entertainers.
Right.
They saw it as a more direct, maybe more secure way to share and sell their work compared to other options at the time. That direct model was pretty novel then.
So a direct line, creator to audience, especially for adult content initially. Okay, let's talk money then. Because you hear these stories, right? Huge earnings potential. What's the reality according to the data?
Yeah, this is where the perception and the numbers often diverge quite a bit, the median earnings. We're talking somewhere between $150 and $180 a month.
Per month.
Per month. So annually, that's maybe around $2,000.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
really different from the narrative of everyone getting rich.
It really is. It highlights that while, yes, some people make a lot, that's absolutely not the typical experience.
So why that massive gap between the median and those success stories?
Well, a huge factor is income inequality on the platform itself. It's incredibly concentrated.
I will concentrate.
Get this, the top 1% of creators, they pull in about 33% of all the revenue generated on OnlyFans.
1% gets a third. Wow.
And it gets starker. The top 10% of creators earn 73% of the total income.
73% for the top 10%.
Yep. So the vast majority of the money flows to a very small group at the top. It's a pattern we see elsewhere online, but it seems particularly pronounced here.
Okay, so it's skewed.
Ah.
Heavily skewed. But those top earners do exist. We're not imagining them.
Oh, absolutely. They exist. The data shows over 300 creators making more than $1 million a year.
Okay.
And then there's a larger group, maybe around 16,000 creators, earning over $50,000 annually.
Right. So substantial income is possible, but it's statistically unlikely for most.
Precisely. It's achievable for a few, but it represents a small fraction of the 4.5 million creators.
That really paints a clearer picture of the financial landscape. And how does the money actually move? It's subscriptions, mostly.
Yeah, subscriptions are core. The average subscriber spends something like $7.20 per month.
Okay.
And from that, the platform takes a 20% cut, its commission. The creator keeps 80%.
Right. That 80-20 split is pretty standard in the creator economy, isn't it?
It is. It's quite common.
But given those low median earnings you mentioned, like under $200 a month for most, what does it actually take to be considered, successful financially on OnlyFans?
Well, if you manage to earn $1,000 a month, that actually puts you in the top 5% of all earners on the platform.
Top 5% just for hitting $1,000 a month.
Yeah. And like we said, most are making less than $200. So it really underlines how competitive it is. You've got to think about marketing, discoverability, how you stand out. It's not easy to break into that top tier.
That really puts the financial side into perspective. Okay, so beyond the money, what about the other side of the coin? The challenges, the downsides for creators. It can't all be about cash flow.
No, absolutely not. And one big area is potential professional fallout outside of OnlyFans.
Like in the regular jobs or careers.
Exactly. We've seen reports, for instance, about 2 teachers in Missouri. Apparently, they faced termination after their OnlyFans accounts were found.
Wow.
And then there's Patrick McDonald, an Emmy-nominated producer. He claimed his involvement sort of strained his relationships within the Bravo network.
Right, so real-world consequences.
Definitely. It shows that conflict between this kind of online work and more traditional professional lives still exists. Big time.
And what about the personal toll? The mental, emotional side for the creators?
Oh, that's huge. And often overlooked. You have accounts like CJ Clark. He's a very successful male creator, top tier. He's spoken openly about feeling profound loneliness, even with all the financial success.
Loneliness despite the connection with fans, theoretically.
Right. And then you have someone like Jessie Cave, the actress from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
She talked about feeling shame and real discomfort because of unsolicited explicit messages she got after joining.
Ugh, yeah. That's awful.
These stories really highlight the emotional weight, the complexities that can come with this work.
It brings the human element right to the front, doesn't it? It's not just transactions.
Not at all.
And then there's the risk of, well, content getting out there without permission. Leaks.
Yes, that's a major, major concern. Content leaks. Caitlin Krems is one creator whose experience was reported where her content was allegedly shared without consent.
That must be devastating.
It highlights just how vulnerable creators can be when it comes to controlling their own work, their privacy. The impact can be huge, emotionally and financially.
I've also heard creators talk about feeling pressure to keep escalating the content, to keep subscribers interested.
That's a very common theme, yes. The pressure to level up, offer something more explicit, more novel, just to keep the existing audience happy and maybe attract new people.
Which could lead to creators pushing their own boundaries further than they're comfortable with.
Exactly. It can lead to real discomfort, ethical questions, feeling like you're constantly having to up the ante.
And once something is online, it's basically there forever, isn't it?
Pretty much. That permanence is a huge issue. Trying to completely erase digital content once it's out there, virtually impossible. So creators face these long-term worries about their digital footprint.
These are really serious challenges. Let's maybe look at some of those specific cases you touched on. Sarah Blake, the former Playboy model.
Yeah.
What does her story tell us?
Yeah, Sarah Blake's experience is interesting because it really pushes back against that easy money idea, even for someone who already had a public profile.
Right, you'd think she'd have an advantage.
You would. But she reportedly faced a lot of backlash in her community, enough that her family actually had to relocate. And she really emphasized how much sheer dedication and hard work it took, just dispelling that myth of effortless income completely.
So definitely not just post and profit. What about Annie Knight? She seemed to have found that financial success.
Annie Knight's case, yes, it shows that substantial financial gain is possible. She reportedly used her earnings to build up quite a property portfolio in Australia.
Okay.
But her story also includes legal issues, like being deported from Fiji, apparently related to her content creation.
Ah, okay. So success, but also potential complications, legal entanglements?
Exactly. It underlines that you need to be aware of and navigate different legal rules in different places. It's not always straightforward.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
And the swimmer, Luana Alonso from Paraguay, that's a unique path.
It really is. So she was reportedly expelled from the Paris 2024 Olympics.
Right.
And after that, she transitioned to OnlyFans. But what's fascinating now, she's apparently thinking about returning to competitive swimming.
Huh.
It just highlights how fluid careers can be these days and how platforms like OnlyFans can kind of weave into these changing life paths in unexpected ways.
Yeah, totally. It shows the diversity of experiences. And CJ Clark, again, you mentioned the loneliness, but his story also highlights the potential upside, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Becoming a millionaire through the platform, relatively young, it shows the scale of financial success that is achievable for some.
Yeah.
But like we said, his comments about loneliness really serve as this powerful counterpoint. Financial success doesn't automatically equal happiness or fulfillment.
Right. It raises big questions about the social, the emotional cost, maybe.
Definitely. What does that kind of work, often done in isolation, mean for overall well-being?
These individual stories add so much depth. Okay, let's zoom back out. What about the bigger picture? The societal impacts, the controversy still swirling around OnlyFans.
Well, it sits right in the middle of this ongoing debate. Is it empowering or is it exploitation?
The big question.
Yeah. You have proponents who see it as giving individuals, especially women, financial independence, control over their own bodies and content in ways maybe traditional industries don't allow.
Okay.
But then the critics argue it can reinforce harmful gender dynamics, contribute to objectification, and potentially be exploitative, especially given the power imbalances.
It's a really polarized debate.
Very much so. Deeply held views on both sides.
And we already touched on the professional fallout that points to lingering societal judgments, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Those stories of people losing jobs or facing social stigma because of their OnlyFans work, they show that there's still a lack of widespread acceptance, persistent judgments around sex work or adjacent activities.
Yeah.
And alongside that, we're hearing more and more about creator burnout, anxiety, depression, which suggests potential wider mental health issues linked to the pressures of the platform.
It's such a complex mix. Financial opportunity, personal cost, societal judgment, all tangled together.
Precisely.
Before we wrap up, any other key numbers or insights from the sources that stood out to you?
Yeah, a few quick ones. OnlyFans revenue in 2023, a staggering $1.3 billion.
Billion with a B.
Yep. And total fan spending on the platform hit $6.63 billion.
Wow.
And the company itself reported a pre-tax profit of $658 million for that year. So enormous amounts of money circulating.
Just huge economic activity.
Yeah.
And it's still growing.
Seems so. That revenue was up nearly 20% from the year before, which indicates it's still expanding its reach and monetization.
And all this with a surprisingly small team, reportedly.
Yeah, that's quite remarkable. The reports suggest around only 42 employees manage this massive global operation. Very lean.
That is lean. And you mentioned earlier, it's not just adult content anymore.
Correct. While that's still, a dominant part of its image and likely revenue, we are seeing more diversity. Fitness creators, musicians, chefs, people using the direct-to-fan model for other types of content.
So maybe a slow evolution of the platform's identity.
Potentially. It's something to watch.
And we should probably mention that brief moment in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
The policy change attempt.
Oh, right. When they announced they were banning sexually explicit content.
Yeah. And then almost immediately walked it back.
Exactly. The backlash from creators was intense, and they reversed course very quickly. It really highlighted how dependent the platform is on its core adult content creators and that complex relationship they have to manage.
It definitely showed where the power balance lies to some extent. Okay, this has been incredibly insightful, but it feels like there's still so much more we could discuss.
Always.
So as we finish up this deep dive on OnlyFans in 2025, what are the absolute key things you think our listeners should take away?
I think first, just grasp the sheer scale of it. Millions of users, millions of creators. Second, understand that stark income disparity. Huge potential for a few, but modest earnings for the vast majority.
Right.
Third, recognize the very real challenges and risks, the professional stuff, mental health, content leaks, the pressure. It's not an easy path. And finally, just acknowledge those ongoing, complex societal debates around empowerment versus exploitation that the platform brings to the surface. There aren't easy answers there.
Absolutely. So when you put it all together, this mix of, big money potential for some, but serious personal and societal challenges for many others, what does it tell us, bigger picture, about how content creation and online economies are changing?
That's the big question to ponder, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really makes you, the listener, think. As these digital platforms keep reshaping everything, how we create, how we consume, how money flows online, what are the long-term effects for the individuals trying to make a living this way, and for our wider culture, our values. It's an ongoing story, really, and the implications, I think, are still unfolding. Lots to keep thinking about.